I will ring the bell 3 times and invite us to take a few moments of silence to just center ourselves, be here, be now. There is nothing to achieve. Let us simply be here. Good morning. It is so good to be here again. And every time I come to this place, this sanctuary, I only feel the sacredness, the holiness, and the love that permeates through the walls, through you, through this very, very place. Thank you for having me once again, and it always is a joy to be here amongst you. And thank you, Reverend Jorge Bautista, for preparing, the order of service. I appreciate it. And I also would like to say hi and welcome to Jane, to David, and to Astrid. Thank you for joining us on Zoom. So we all have a dark side, and it is reflected everywhere, within ourselves and out there. And you know what? It is not going away. Some of you may be shocked to hear this, or disappointed, angry, frustrated, sad, maybe not only at my statement, but maybe towards me. Some of you may say you are contradicting yourself when in your past messages you encouraged us to rest in God, to rest in love, to rest in our true nature, to trust that it is there regardless of whether we see it, we feel it, we taste it, we hear it, we know it, or we understand it. Yes, I would be contradicting myself if we assume that our true nature is only good, is only right, is only light. The radiance of our true nature that I speak of is a radiance beyond light and dark. It is beyond this or that. It is one that holds all the contradictions of life on earth. It's one that holds all the paradoxes of life on earth. Dark and light, peace and suffering, rich and poor, equality and inequality, justice and injustice, clean air and polluted air, fire and water, sickness and health, youth and aging, and every being, stones, rocks, twigs, plants, trees, fish, snakes, all in this world, all of which are within us, all of which are us. And there is no escape from all of that. This is it. This is it, here and now. Everything that's going on in us and in the world, this is it. So how can we say yes or no to it? And yet many of us, me included, go through all the trouble, go through all the painstaking effort to sit, to pray, to reflect, to do good deeds, to seek therapy with the hope that we can banish our dark side. And we can banish the dark side of others. That we can get rid of all that seems to us harsh, shameful, maimed, ugly, and damaged. And one dangerous thing about this is when we consider ourselves slightly improved, kinder, a little more generous, we sometimes start to think of ourselves as better than the other, above the other, or other than the other. And when we become aware of that with some self-awareness, some of us may admonish ourselves for being judgmental, for being harsh, for being bad, and the cycle continues. For some of us, we try harder. For some of us, we give up. And for some of us, we respond by embracing all that is harsh, shameful, maimed, ugly, and damaged about us. To embrace, however, does not mean to condone. Rather, it is to allow ourselves to be fully ourselves, without the internal criticism. I go through all three and more. Trying harder, giving up, embracing, and it all depends on the situation, depending on what is required, and depending on what the context is. And yet embracing all, being in all that is, never fails to quiet things down. In my case, sometimes I get there quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes not even close. And even that, I try to embrace. One of the things that has helped me in the process of going through all of this is practicing soft eyes. 16 years ago, I attended an 8-day Zen retreat at the Jikoji Zen Center in the snow-covered mountains of Los Gatos. During a talk, Peter, the Zen teacher, encouraged us to practice with soft eyes, to see and look with soft eyes. He said that this was a teaching from Kobun Chino Roshi, who was the founder of the Jikoji Zen Center. Hearing that, I found myself saying, my dad has soft eyes. My dad has soft eyes. In August of 2020, my dad died of COVID-19 in Manila. He was 90 years old, and he was healthy, cognitively sharp until COVID-19. He got it from my sister, who is a nephrologist and epidemiologist, who was exposed to an asymptomatic patient. One morning, he suddenly had difficulty breathing, and my sisters and nephews rushed him to the emergency room. He was dead on arrival. Given that the emergency room was a red zone, my sisters and nephews could not be by his side. Because he was suspected to have COVID-19, he was cremated within hours. All who knew my dad experienced him as kind, as generous, as gentle, and patient. He had one of the best bedside manners. He was an anesthesiologist. He left a potentially promising practice in New York City in the 1960s to marry his childhood sweetheart, my mother, and return to his hometown to realize a boyhood dream of serving his people. So when I was growing up in our town, he took my mom and me to visit his patients in far-flung barrios. We would cross streams, walk along rice paddies, pierced away through cornfields to reach these patients. He had hoped that I would take over his medical practice. Instead, in my case, after meandering through life, I eventually took after his father, my grandfather, who was a Methodist minister. And then later on, I learned that my grandfather had served as a chaplain in the guerrilla armed forces of the Philippines during World War II. Anyway, back to my father. I would say that my father and I were close. He and I shared a love for reading. We enjoyed Harlan together. I had always aspired to be like him, especially about looking and seeing with soft eyes. To look and see with soft eyes is to look and see with gentleness. To look and see clearly without prejudice. To look and see with openness, and to look and see with generosity. And to look and see with soft eyes for me is to see reality in its naked form and formlessness. It is to see the other as no other than me. It is to see reality as seamless and indivisible. Seeing with soft eyes is also for me to see without clinging to how things should be. This doesn't mean that beliefs or ideas or thinking is a problem. Rather, it is my stubborn attitude of seeing and having things in a particular way that causes challenging situations and that causes suffering. Would you be willing to see and look at yourself with soft eyes? To look and see yourself in your fullness, including all that is harsh, shameful, maimed, ugly, damaged, and dark. Doing so with gentleness, with patience, with openness, with generosity. The beauty about this practice of looking and seeing with soft eyes is we are able to notice more. Not only what is in front of us, not only what is within us, but also what is around us. In his book, The Courage to Teach, Parker Palmer notes that in the Japanese self-defense of Aikido, there is also the practice of soft eyes, which means to widen one's periphery to take in more of the world. He says, soft eyes, it seems to me, is an evocative image of what happens when we gaze on sacred reality. Now our eyes are open and receptive, able to take in the greatness of the world and the grace of great things. And yet, how can we do that when we find ourselves like the Jews in Isaiah, walking through a land draped in darkness and gloom? The Jews passed through a land littered with their dead loved ones killed in war. They walk through it and find no food. And looking at it, they see nothing but darkness and misery. And this image to me brings up the ongoing news of scandals, like the recent Epstein files being released, widespread corruption, devastating wildfires, deadly floods, shocking earthquakes, rising inflation, economic instability, continued ecological threats, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Israel, and Palestinian region. This image of darkness and misery brings up ongoing violence, arrests by ICE, deportation of people owing to structural racism. And it brings up the forced displacement of millions around the world from their countries and homes owing to dreadful wars, poverty, economic and political crisis. And when I read the news, I get a sense of pervading gloom and doom, not only here in our country, but in the rest of the world. I feel a sense of fear and anxiety from many about the future. Michelle Goldberg, a New York Times columnist, in her article, "The Darkness Where the Future Should Be," asks, what happens to a society that loses its capacity for awe and wonder at things to come? She writes, pessimism is everywhere, in opinion polls, in rising suicide rates and falling birth rates, and in the downward trajectory of millennials. Yes, there is a lot of fear and anxiety. I use these two words because I want to distinguish one from the other. Fear is that unpleasant, anticipated, and expectation of a realistic external danger, whose source we are consciously aware of, whose source is something we can name. It is fear of something specific, like we might be afraid that we might get infected with a harmful virus, or that we might lose a loved one. On the other hand, anxiety is that unpleasant anticipation about something. It has a quality of indefiniteness and a lack of object. What does it feel like to be anxious? First, we feel uncertain, agitated, or unsettled. There's a growing sense that something bad is about to happen. There's a vague sense of impending loss. How do we cope with these feelings? I encourage us to admit, if you are, that we are anxious. And some of us have notions about our feelings. For example, some of us believe that to admit that we are frightened, that we are fearful, that we are anxious, is to admit to being weak. We deny our anxiety and try to pretend that nothing is wrong. And whenever we deny our anxiety, we only undermine our ability to defend ourselves from whatever is threatening. When we feel anxious, we are perceiving a threat, even though we may not be aware of it. It means that something we consider important is being threatened. While fear and anxiety may be regarded as dark feelings, I encourage us once again to welcome them because they serve as messengers. They invite us to get to know about our personalities and consider what is beyond our personalities. These invitations remind me of the 4-year-old runaway Anna in the book Mr. God, This is Anna. And Anna says, in the dark, you have to describe yourself. In the daylight, other people describe you. She also says, the sun is nice, but it lights things up so much that you can't see very far. The nighttime is better because it stretches your soul to the stars. While it is tempting to seek relief, seek rescuing, find a fix, find the light, I would like us to consider sitting in the dark, to stay with our fears and anxieties, and ask ourselves, what are we so afraid of losing? Going within is the way rather than seeking solutions outside in the form of physical comfort, safety, financial security, status, prestige, power. Ironically, for some, the more we have physical comforts, safety, financial security, status, prestige, and power, the more fearful and insecure we feel. And so I say, to go within means to rest in our true nature, where true safety comes from and comes forth. And it takes courage to journey within. Because as we journey within, we will have to face what we are afraid of, our wants and desires, our prejudices, our impulses, our dark side. And yet, when we courageously penetrate our inner experience, including that of our bodies, we find that our nature, as well as the nature of all forms, is that of all-encompassing love. That is what Christian mystics and sages of faith traditions have discovered and experienced. Some have called it God, divine, creator, Holy One, the unknowable, the Tao, absolute reality, true nature. What can we draw on to help us journey within and experience our true nature and true safety? I suggest the practice of looking and seeing with soft eyes. To look and see with soft eyes is to look and see with gentleness, to look and see clearly and without prejudice, to look and see with openness, and to look and see with generosity. To look and see with soft eyes is to see reality in its bare and naked form and formlessness. It is to see the other as no other than us. It is to see reality as seamless and indivisible. Seeing with soft eyes is also able to see without clinging to concepts of how things should be. Again, this doesn't mean that beliefs or ideas or thinking is a problem. Rather, it's more of our stubborn way or our stubborn attitude of seeing and having things in a particular way that causes challenges and that causes suffering. So the parable of the Good Samaritan demonstrates how concepts can prevent us from seeing clearly, from seeing without prejudice. This parable is potent because it is within the context of Jews and Samaritans hating each other over religious beliefs. And Jesus tells this story to show that kindness, compassion, and generosity, regardless of beliefs, be offered to all. The priest and the Levite, who believed to be pure and chosen, who's clinging to their notions of religious obligations, who clung to their notions of what is sacred, holy, and sublime, stopped them from helping the battered man. Because of their beliefs, they could not respond to what was needed in the moment. The Good Samaritan, however, did not see the suffering man as other. He saw clearly, and he saw without prejudice. He saw the battered man as him as well. There was no internal debate as to whether or not he should help the man. He swiftly took action as the situation required. He responded with immediacy and compassion. He responded swiftly towards the suffering man, a man who may have been the most undesirable man or undesirable person to him. A man who may have even been a Jew whom many Samaritans hated. Yet even more, the Good Samaritan helped with generosity and without condition. Would you be willing to see and look at yourself and with others with soft eyes? To look and see the world and everything that surrounds us and everything that happens here and now with soft eyes? To look and see everything in their fullness, including all that is dark, that is harsh, that is maimed, that is ugly, that is damaged and dark, with gentleness, with openness, with generosity. I encourage all of us to do so. And that would mean embracing all. Nothing is excluded. And when we do so, we will find ourselves resting in our true nature that includes all and that includes nothing. May it be so. Amen. Kasha.